During the development of Sonic 2, Sega had cooked up a brand new add-on for the Sega Mega Drive called the Mega CD, or the Sega CD for the Sega Genesis if you're normal. With this add-on, the Sega Genesis would be capable of highly compressed full-motion video and high-quality audio that a smooth criminal could only dream of having on a base Sega Genesis. Naturally, Sega wanted a game that would show off the Sega CD's sheer power, and what better game to show it off with than a Sonic game? Problem is, Yuji Naka, Sonic 1's lead programmer, and Hirokazu Yasuhara, Sonic 1's lead game designer, had moved over to Sega Technical Institute to work on Sonic 2, leaving Naoto Oshima, the man who designed Sonic, to be put in the director's seat for this new project. Initially starting life as an enhanced port of Sonic 1 to the Sega CD titled CD Sonic the Hedgehog, the game would eventually evolve into what we now know as Sonic CD, releasing on September 23, 1993 in Japan, with Europe and America receiving the game in October and November of the same year respectively, selling a total of 1.5 million copies worldwide. Personally, I first played the game through the 2011 remake by Christian Whitehead. From what I remember, I found the game a little bit dull when I was younger. I didn't understand the point of the time travel mechanic, and I remember struggling with the special stages. But despite how bland I thought it was, I remember booting it up again and again, playing through it to the bad ending each and every time. So clearly I either saw something interesting in this game, or I just really wanted to play a classic Sonic game, and this was the only one I had available to me at the time. As for the game's story, once a year a planet known as Little Planet appears above Never Lake. This planet is home to the Time Stones, a set of 7 gems that allows whoever wields all 7 to control time itself. It was only a matter of time before Eggman had set his sights on Little Planet, and with world domination on his mind, he intends on turning Little Planet into a new base of operations, so he chains Little Planet to a mountain and searches for the 7 Time Stones. Enters Sonic, who didn't even know of Eggman's plans. He just caught wind of the rumors surrounding Little Planet's arrival and figured he would check it out. That was when he had seen the planet in a damaged state, being chained down near a mountain with a familiar face carved into the side. Without a second thought, Sonic sped up the chain straight to Little Planet in order to liberate it from Eggman's control. In this outing, Sonic has 2 new moves, the Super Peel Out and the Spin Dash. Don't get that second one mixed up with the one from Sonic 2 though. This Spin Dash works a little differently from Sonic 2's Spin Dash. Where in Sonic 2, it was as simple as holding down the D-pad and mashing the A button, making it feel quick and snappy, here the Spin Dash is performed by holding down the D-pad and tapping the A button once, releasing when the Spin Dash is fully charged for a burst of speed. I really don't like this iteration of the Spin Dash. It's just not as satisfying or snappy to use to me as the Sonic 2 Spin Dash. As for the Super Peel Out, it similarly gives you a quick burst of speed, except it's both faster to perform and speedier than the Spin Dash at the cost of making you more vulnerable to damage. That is until you immediately hold down when letting loose, causing it to basically just be a second faster Spin Dash. It's even performed in a similar way, by holding up on the D-pad and tapping A rather than holding down on the D-pad. As for the core gameplay, it's a little bit different from the previous games. While, yes, your goal is to still get to the end of the stage as fast as you can, using optimal routes, momentum, and power-ups to your advantage while snagging any rings you can along the way, now you have these signposts that say past or future on them. Running past one won't do much until you start to gain speed. Maintain enough speed for a certain amount of time, and you'll travel either one step into the past or one step into the future. And this is where the differences with Sonic CD as a Sonic game really start to show. Focusing more on exploration, all 3 time periods have slight level differences. Maybe an extra life monitor somewhere in the past no longer exists in the future, for example. And as for the future, it looks absolutely terrible. Just look at Palm Tree Panic. Its greenery is rotting away. This is why you listen to the Lorax, folks. Mildly snarky jokes aside, your second goal is to prevent this bad future. Make a good future by traveling to the past and destroying these robot generators. Doing so will destroy all the badniks in the past and the now good future. This is where the main gameplay loop starts to show. It goes something like, find a past sign, find a good spot to time travel, find and destroy the robot generator, and maybe, just maybe, if you're feeling extra frisky today, travel into the future twice to see the good future you've created. I actually had quite a fun time exploring these levels, trying to find the robot generators and places to time travel. All except Wacky Workbench. I would have never found the robot generator there if not for the internet. To continue the tradition, you have to take this upper route here, and this thing that looks like it'll crush you? Yeah, you have to let it crush you. It'll transport you to the robot generator. How anyone figured this out is a mystery to me. Getting back on track now, while I do like the game loop, I can also find it to be a pain to time travel, especially in the original game. The second you hit the slightest upward incline and you're about to jump through time, you immediately lose the ability to time travel, leading you to have to find another signpost and possibly leading you to get increasingly frustrated. I won't deny it though, it is really satisfying destroying those robot generators and traveling through time to see the good future you brought to the place. That said, there is another option if you would rather play this game as a traditional Sonic game, and that is to collect the time stones. But to talk about those is to talk about the special stages of this game, so let's get into that. We've come back to Sonic 1's method of entering the special stages, having stashed 50 rings by the end of the level, and jumping into a big ol' ring. Upon jumping in, you'll be transported to these Super Mario Kart looking 3D-ish levels. The goal of these is to destroy the UFOs invading the place under a certain time limit while avoiding water, which will rapidly drain your time. These special stages are actually quite forgiving, I think, since when you reach the 20-second mark, a blue UFO will spawn in that, when destroyed, will add an additional 30 seconds to the clock. Really the only issues I find myself running into with these special stages is that Sonic feels a little bit stiff to control, and I think his turning could have been a little bit tighter. I also found the collision on these UFOs to be really finicky. Like, sometimes I swear I hit the damn thing, but it just says, "Nuh-uh," and I just phase right through the UFO. That's also ignoring the fact that collecting all 7 time stones doesn't give you anything special. It just automatically destroys the robot generators, netting you the good futures and by extension, the good ending. Yeah, not nearly as good of a reward as Super Sonic, which gave you invincibility, a jump boost, and a speed boost, is it? I also feel that collecting the time stones is sort of flying in the face of what this game was supposed to be. A Sonic game that encouraged exploration. I'd suggest playing the game without collecting the time stones. Instead, take your time and explore this game's levels while searching for and destroying the robot generators. But moving away from the gameplay, this game looks fantastic. Like, I thought Sonic 2 looked great, but I gotta say, this is a solid contender for the best looking classic Sonic game in my honest opinion. Each period of time feels like a natural evolution from the last. The bad futures using more bleak, desaturated colors to show just how bad Eggman's influence was on the little planet really makes me feel proud to see just how different they are in the good futures, often mixing natural and mechanical elements in a healthy way, and the past versions of each stage fittingly feeling a lot more raw and natural compared to the present and future. The special stages too, they look cool as hell, minus that one, which is... God, it would be really easy to make an acid trip joke or something like that with this stage. The colors are just so fucking bright. Come to think of it, the Good Future stages can feel like that sometimes too. Very eye-strainy. They probably should have toned down the saturation of those colors just a smidge. I don't know. But on top of having stellar visuals, minus the eye strain, Sonic CD keeps delivering with that music too. For some clarification, I'm referring to the Japanese soundtrack, but the American soundtrack isn't too bad either, going for more atmospheric music rather than laying down the beats like the Japanese soundtrack does. The boss music for the American soundtrack still makes me shit my pants though. Aside, do yourself a favor and listen to both versions of the OST for this game. Seriously, they're both stellar. The Japanese opening, You Can Do Anything, or Sonic Warrior, is as cheesy as it is catchy, and the US opening, Sonic Boom, is no slouch either when it comes to catchiness. As for how the game is structured, we've once again gone back to Sonic 1's 3-act structure, this time being slightly modified. There's 3 acts, with the 3rd act taking place in either the good future or the bad future, depending on if you've got the previous 2 robot generators. The 3rd act is also a lot shorter due to Sonic CD's focus on verticality, meaning Act 3 generally goes a lot quicker. It also helps that the bosses in this game are genuinely the easiest bosses in the series, typically only taking around 3 or 4 hits to defeat, as well as having piss-easy attack patterns. Don't get me wrong, Sonic hasn't necessarily been known for having hard bosses, outside of the Death Egg robot of course, but these bosses could probably be defeated by breathing on them the wrong way. Scratch that breathing at all! Moving on to the zones, Palm Tree Panic, just like Emerald Hill, feels like they're once again riding off of Green Hill's coattails. In fact, a lot of the game's levels remind me of stages from Sonic 1, which makes sense considering that the game was conceived as a port of Sonic 1. That aside, I feel like Palm Tree Panic is still a good starting stage. Plenty of places to get acquainted with how time travel works, and I also feel like it stands out a little bit more on its own when compared to Emerald Hill. This is also where you can find Amy. She even hugs Sonic if you stand still. How sweet. Jumping on over to Collision Chaos Zone, it's like Spring Yard Zone, but a little better I think. I really like the present day color palette for this stage, those bright pinks and neon bumpers everywhere. I also like how you can see what's either a town in the sky or Never Lake when you reach the top of this stage. I just think it's neat. The boss of this stage is... It either takes 30 seconds or 30 minutes to beat. I can't appreciate how they did a full pinball boss though. I really like that idea. Casino Night did a similar thing. Oh yeah, and this is where Amy gets kidnapped by Metal Sonic. I just thought I'd mention that. Moving on to Title Tempest, it's just what Labyrinth Zone from Sonic 1 was trying to be. Even some of the bricks in this zone remind me of Labyrinth Zone. I will say, I like the combination of yellow mixed with blue bricks. It really makes it stand out nicely. I also really like the boss of the stage. It's literally mirroring Labyrinth Zone's boss, but instead of running away from the water as it chases you up a thin shaft with traps everywhere, you're chasing Eggman into the water instead, hitting his Eggmobile as it travels deeper and deeper until the dumbass gets cornered and covers himself in air bubbles. I really wasn't kidding when I said you could beat some of these bosses by breathing. I really don't have much to say about Quartz Quadrant Zone. I found the conveyor belt mechanic to be a little dull, outside of when it was used to zip upward, and even then, I mostly used it to time travel. The boss here is a little stupid too. It literally defeats itself. It's just a matter of waiting and occasionally dodging a bomb that Eggman drops. For a guy who supposedly has an IQ of 300, you would think he would take into account how conveyor belts that are fast enough to hold off a hedgehog who can break the sound barrier would cause his machine that touches said conveyor belt to slowly melt away. Dumbass. Bouncing on over to Wacky Workbench, and I don't want to be here anymore. This stage has this annoying mechanic where whenever you touch the floor, it just sends you flying off the planet, making it a little bit of a pain to time travel here. On top of that, as mentioned earlier, you have this damn robot generator that makes you go against all logic. I do like the good future version of the stage though. Looks like the place got renovated into a toy factory or something. It reminds me of something straight from Rystar for some reason. Don't know why. I also liked how the boss of the stage used the bouncy floor mechanic. That's something that this game is usually really good at, using mechanics from the stages and the bosses. I really like it when games do that. Stardust Speedway. Does this stage even really need an introduction? Easily the speediest stage in the game, with the mechanics of the stage focusing around building up speed. I also liked how they handled the mechanic with the springs here, where you have to press down the right direction on the D-pad to tell Sonic which path to take. And let's not forget the reason why this stage in particular is so iconic. The Metal Sonic boss fight. Well, it's more of a race than a boss fight. Your goal is to get to the end of the raceway before Metal Sonic, and this guy can be really tricky. You have to keep up the pace in this race, since if you fall too far behind, it's an instant death at the hands of this laser Eggman's beaming down on the track. I am almost always neck and neck with this guy, and honestly, I think this is the best boss in the game because of the challenge that comes with it. That's also without getting into the visuals. This town in the background going through what seems to be some sort of celebration as Sonic speeds down this giant brass instrument. And then the bad future of this stage. Holy hell does it look amazing. I legitimately prefer the bad future over the good future. It really sets the tone for a semi-final stage. Not to mention the good future is just... jeez. Oh yeah, and you finally save Amy at the end of the Metal Sonic race. Just thought I'd mention that. Finally, we have Metallic Madness. Oh, yeah, real quick, obligatory spoiler warning for the final zone and boss. Skip to blah 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 to avoid spoilers or whatever. Finally, we have Metallic Madness Zone, which just feels like Scrap Brain Zone with a little bit of Metropolis Zone's color palette and theme thrown into the mix. For me, what drags the stage down so much is just the fact that there's 3 mechanics in the specific zone that are interesting ideas, but aren't really utilized to their fullest potential. Take this mechanic where Sonic gets shrunk down to a small size. They could have done a lot more with this mechanic, I think, but throughout the 3 playthroughs of the game I had done, I did not find any other place where this mechanic was used. Maybe it was because at this point I was just blazing through the stages since I had all the time stones, so I didn't find any alternative paths where the mechanic was used again, but I don't know. The music here is fucking stellar, though. I especially love the Bad Future mix for the stage. It's literally Eggman mocking Sonic for not destroying all the robot generators. And now, usually I like talking about the tone for the final boss, the build-up and all that. But here, Sonic CD flops just like Sonic 1. Not because the music is unfitting, no. Final Fever is a really fitting track, but the boss itself is piss easy, just like every other boss in the game. And in that regard, Sonic CD fails. At least this boss actually gave you rings, unlike Sonic 2's final boss. But where Sonic CD doesn't fail is the ending. Sonic defeats Eggman's orb thing, and Metallic Madness begins to fall apart. Just then, Amy shows up. How the hell she got here, I have no idea, prompting Sonic to snatch her up and jump off a little planet. Overall, Sonic CD, while a little flawed in its mechanics and a little bit easy for my tastes, is a pretty solid Sonic game in my honest opinion. If not for the level design, then definitely for the stellar art and music. In my opinion, it's definitely better than Sonic 1, and I personally think that if you're just getting introduced to the series, then this would be a good place to start. Of course, if you want to get your hands on the game these days, there's the 2011 mobile port by Christian Whitehead, which adds small quality of life changes such as being able to choose between the Japanese and US soundtracks, as well as using the uncompressed versions of the game's opening and closing cutscenes, so you can see them in all their full, crisp, hand-drawn glory. It also has the ability to play as Tails, which is pretty neat I think. And just like Sonic 1 and 2, you can find Sonic CD in the Sonic Origins collection on pretty much everything as of December 2023. And again, I still have yet to play the collection, so unfortunately I still cannot speak for myself about the quality of this port. With all of that said, I don't have an ending bit this time. I didn't have one last time either. That guy literally just mugged me. On a side note, it gets really lonely here.